My name is Tara Donnelly, and I'm a parent in Rochester. So tonight I am here to try and understand why RCS spent bond money on a peripheral endeavor like carrying steps before making, not Karen steps, carrying steps before meeting the basic needs of our core K through 12 facilities. In 2015, we approved the $180 million bond, and out of that bond, $2.1 million were earmarked for critical needs at Longmeadow. Critical needs were defined by the 2015 RCS Summary of Work as issues that had to be addressed within 1 to 3 years of identification. A roof replacement was identified as a critical need for Longmeadow in 2015, but by 2018, the renovation budget for Longmeadow dropped. It dropped from $2.1 million to $996,000. In the same year, RCS bought Caring Steps with $2.9 million from our general fund and renovated it a few months later with $2.34 million of the 2015 bond money. The optics here are that RCS took bond money away from Longmeadow and gave it to Caring Steps. Longmeadow did not get a new roof in 2018. In fact, Longmeadow's roof deteriorated so much that by the fall of 2019, they were lining the halls with buckets to catch rainwater anytime there was a storm. So here we are now in 2021, and RCS is finally addressing this critical need at Longmeadow. I'm really not sure if RCS is replacing Longmeadow's roof or just patching it up, but I am happy that something is finally being done. It's just a shame that it took 6 years to get here. So this all goes back to district priorities. Teachers and students in our K through 12 classrooms should be our #1 priority. So I really don't understand why RCS chose to spend the $2.34 million to renovate Caring Steps in 2018 instead of spending the earmarked bond money to replace the roof at Longmeadow. Please, I implore you, start directing your time and our budget to core issues in the K through 12 classrooms instead of investing in peripheral endeavors like Caring Steps. Thank you for your time and your attention tonight.
I have a card from Stephanie Van Dale. Did you wish to speak again, or was this?
Again, this is Stephanie Van Dale, and I have twins at Stony Creek High School and a singleton at 7th grade at Hart Middle School. And I'm just going to kind of lay it out there for you guys. I think Caring Steps should be entirely dismantled for cost and practicality. I mean, at the last meeting, if you can't staff it and you can't keep a low turnover, then you have no business being in that sector of service. Thank you.
Deanna Harlis.
Good evening. My name is Deanna Harlis, and I'm a community member and a former parent of RCS students. I'm not a former parent because my children graduated, but because we pulled them from the district because we did not believe the district was providing quality education options. In the last board meeting, we heard a lot about being a future-focused district. I want to say that you can't focus on the future when you're unable to make decisions in the present. Parents have been asking for a plan for quarantine students since last August, and there's still not one. Some administrators have told parents to ask your children's teacher to live stream, where some teachers were live streaming and were told by their administration to stop. When we were hybrid, parents asked what was the plan in case of snow days. The district never came up with a plan for that. Without the administration making decisions and the board holding them accountable, any talk of being future focused is just that, talk. Thank you.
Lori Madigan.
Hi, I'm Lori Madigan. I had 3 kids in the district. I have 2 graduated and 1 junior at Adams. I'm really just speaking tonight to, one, thank you all for staying in school for the last, 9 weeks now, I think Dr. Shaner said. We've lived in fear of what's going on, and I'm happy our kids are still in school and we're working through it. The biggest disappointment is not having a plan for quarantine at this point. I mean, having to contact each teacher individually and some still not helping. I mean, there's a great deal of appreciation. We've been very lucky. My daughter's had some great teachers really stepping up and helping, but her friends have not been so lucky. It should not be a struggle to give fair and equal education to our healthy students who are out there begging for it. M-STEP, just last week, teachers were encouraging students to go home and not take the test. We don't want to measure in our district. We don't want to know how our kids are doing. We're not going to give exams this year because we don't want to know how poor our education has become. My kids, my 3 kids, have not had equal education. My 2 oldest had an outstanding Rochester education. I cannot say the same for my 3rd. I really, really hope that we step it up for next year so that these kids graduate with a good, solid education and we keep our reputation intact. I'm highly opposed to the money being spent on Caring Steps. That general fund money belongs back to the schools. Give our teachers the respect they deserve. Give them the money they need and the tools they need to do the right job for our kids. Thank you.
Stephanie Barnes.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Barnes, and I have 3 children. 2 of them are at North Hill in elementary in 3rd grade and 1st grade. And my youngest is in a preschool and private school. We have loved our teachers at North Hill. I appreciate all that they've done for our kids, and it's with great sadness that we have now decided to pull our 2 older ones and move them to private for next year. Our plan was to send our youngest to TK. I was extremely excited about that before this year, but the lack of transparency and the kowtowing to the union the district has shown has led us to pull our older 2 and send them all to private for next year. This school claims to pride itself in excellence, but there seems to be an abundance of pride and very little excellence. The board has voted unanimously on all things, and yet the district regularly sends emails on diversity, but has no diversity of thought on this board. Who represents me? Who represents all the parents that I come in contact with daily at the bus stop, at sports events, at our school, at drop-off, at pickup, all the places, everybody that I come in contact with, all the parents want a better education than we've received this year. You also emphasize equity in these regular emails, but you, the district, and the board are creating the biggest inequity in our community. After a year, you still haven't come up with a real plan for quarantine students, causing more kids to fall behind. There has been no guarantee for school to be in person for the entirety of next year, and you won't continue, and we don't know if you're going to continue to quarantine students, furthering the divide between those who have means and those who don't. Your track record gives me no confidence school will be normal next year. I'm also appalled one of the largest school districts in our area and one of the strongest teachers unions is not fighting back on the newest guidance from the state to force 2 to 4-year-olds to mask for 8 hours or more a day. There are no long-term studies to show the safety of masking children all day in cloth or paper masks that often become wet and are sure to be holding countless bacteria that is then touched by less than sterile hands, and we don't know that this is healthy. We have no idea the long-term negative effects these masks will have on our children's physical, mental, and developmental health. As a former teacher, I know covering a child's face when they are learning to speak, learning to read, learning to make letter sounds, and countless other things is not good. And yet our large school district and our large teachers unions, the ones who are supposed to be experts in this area, are not fighting back on this. How are children mentally going to handle the idea when they freely breathe, they may be killing someone? That is what we are teaching them by forcing them to wear masks everywhere they go. And yet the data shows spreads in school is not significant. On top of the fact, teachers and now parents can have and been vaccinated if they want. I'm sad to see as a society, we are harming our children for the feeling of safety for some, or for politics, or for whatever the reason is. We should be ashamed of
Stephanie,
ourselves
time's up.
for
Please
not
wrap up.
fighting this insanity. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Julie Stalker.
Hello, I'm Julie Stalker. I have 2 kids in the district and 1 in private school.
It feels condescending, disrespectful, and insulting to be blindsided by large decisions and unanimous votes. I'd like to hear differing opinions from you that are indicative of the diverse community that you're supposed to represent, and see more diverse options considered before a decision is made. The community was blindsided when you voted to purchase a new administration building. I was at home because I have a high-risk child. I don't really want to be in indoor meetings with large groups of people. I watched the unanimous vote on YouTube. When was the last time there was a single dissenting vote? You built up to the purchase by reviewing other more expensive options, which were all associated with renovations. It appeared you already decided to vote unanimously. It came off like a high-pressure sales pitch. It's not going to cost you $30 million. It's not even going to cost you $20 million. It's just going to cost you $10 million. And by the way, we're going to need a loan. It would have been nice to see other options besides just renovating and purchasing were considered. How did this historical building get into such disrepair in the first place? We had a $185 million bond for critical repairs and upgrades. The state of the building sure seemed critical when you spoke of it. Was it not critical in 2015 when you asked for the bond? The preschool program was at capacity in 2018. The vote to purchase Caring Steps was also unanimous. Caring Steps is not spread around the district like the board said was best for the preschool plan. It is pretty far north on Rochester Road, near the border of our district. Was that the area of the district that had the most waitlisted students? It is also not just a preschool, it is a daycare. One of my kids was in daycare for a time. In addition to cleanliness, curriculum, and other factors, location was important. Who is picking up or dropping off? Where are we driving to or from work? When my oldest was ready, we chose a RCS preschool near our home, where my daughter attended a few days a week for a few hours a day. Most of the families were single income families, including mine at the time. Is this the population you wanted to serve? Because they aren't likely to drive very far for a couple hours, 2 to 3 times a week. Watching meetings where you rubber stamp everything does not make us feel represented or heard. Your failure to create a viable solution for students at the beginning of this year created what I call the parent wars. We don't always agree. One parent reached out to me and some others to better understand our perspective. Andrew Weaver and I had never met until tonight, but now he advocates for families like mine as well as his. We have different opinions and we found common ground. There are still many areas where we disagree. If we can respectfully listen to diverse opinions, so can you. I watched a Novi board meeting recently where they respectfully disagreed and voted to return to school after spring break 5-2. I'd like to see diversity and opinions and ideas from the school board. You've put in many long hours for our kids this year, which I appreciate. Please show us that you consider
Please
different
wrap up your comments.
perspectives, respectfully disagree when you want to spend a large sum of money, and investigate more diverse options. I'd prefer to comment on more important topics like reading, but I'd like to feel heard. Thank you.
Kristen Kennedy.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Kennedy and I live in the district. My children no longer go to school in the district. I sent them to private school this year. I was going to comment on other things this evening before I came here, but the last minute I received the latest article in the Detroit News, and I'd like to share it with everybody. I think it's embarrassing and shameful that this is even happening in the district, but the title is Rochester School Parent Sues, Alleges District Got Her Fired for Speaking Out. A parent in Rochester Community Schools has filed a federal lawsuit against the school district alleging its board president called her employer and got her fired for advocating.
I
on
would ask
social
you to
media.
please direct your comments at the entire board and not at one member of the board specifically.
I'm reading an article.
I'm asking you to
I'm not-
please do
it's
that.
It's just stating the facts. I'm not directing at anybody. I'm reading something. For advocating on social media for schools to reopen amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Elena DeVerno filed a civil lawsuit Monday in the U.S. District Court in Detroit against the Oakland County District Board President and Superintendent, alleging they unlawfully restricted her free speech. She has 2 children in the school district, which began the school year remotely last fall. In a lawsuit, she describes herself as a vocal and effective advocate for her position, who frequently question and criticize the decisions of the board through posts and comments in 2 Facebook groups. RCS Parents for In-Person Education and Conservative Parents for Rochester. DeVerno says in the lawsuit that in a post on one of her Facebook group pages, she asked for video testimonials from parents and students expressing the hardships they've endured without the availability of in-person school. The suit alleges that in the fall, a member of the board contacted her employer, Blake's Hard Cider Company in Armada, where she had worked as marketing director since 2009, and falsely claimed that DeVerno was participating in a group launching threats against the school. She alleges she later learned that the board member, who works for the director of content at Crane's Detroit Business, she was later fired. I just want to know, like, the fact that this even is a lawsuit, that someone did this, like, they don't just make things up out of nowhere. This is so shameful. Does this make you guys proud to serve and do this? When did the breakdown of communication come within the community that we get cease and desist letters for expressing how we feel? What will it take so we can work together and we can be heard and we can hear what you guys have to say? This is not good, what's happening here. And I just have to say, we're going to be here advocating,
Time's up.
but I'm afraid vouchers are what people are going to start advocating for next if we aren't heard. Thank you.